Good morning. This is the June 1st meeting of the Capital Subcommittee. This is going to be a very short meeting today, and I'm going to start with the minutes. Have people had a chance to read them?
Yes, I did.
Good. Can I get a motion?
So moved to approve.
I'll second. I'll do a roll call. Andy?
Abstain because I wasn't at that meeting.
Okay, great. Mariah?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so we took care of that business.
You didn't vote.
Oh, yes, and the chair votes yes. It's 3 yes, 1 abstention. Sorry, thank you. It's early in the morning and my coffee hasn't really taken effect.
I feel like we're rusty too, so.
Yeah, exactly. We haven't met as a capital. We're going to have 2 meetings this month and we haven't met for a while. We are waiting for the people from, what's the name of the company again, Matt? Masscorp. To join us. And correct?
Yeah, I don't think Masscorp is gonna join us. I mean, I've been trying to get a price quote. They sort of shied away, even though they have all of our information, to give us a quote on do the chairs, because they don't want to proceed with us if we're not serious.
Well, hold on a second. They said they would meet with us when I talked with them. And did they confirm, Betsy?
They did not. I did follow up with Mr. Nyland with the DOC, Department of Corrections, I presume that is, and shared all the login information, but he did not confirm with me.
Oh, you mean we're having this meeting and they're not coming?
I don't think so. I mean, he told Karen when I was out on Tuesday, because I was off on Tuesday, that they weren't going to proceed until we were, committed to the process.
Well, we can't be.
But that's a catch-22 because the whole point was to clarify things.
I'm going to call him right now.
I agree, Mariah, and they've got all the information. They've got the number of chairs, the measurements. They've seen the room. We've worked out basic logistics with them, except for dates. And so they can do the math to give us the quote. They have the fabric and, we're buying that. And they've done this before and they do this in a lot of places. So,
Do you think that there's an issue of them? Do you think that there's an issue of them not wanting to come speak in a public forum about their program?
I hope not, but I think there's an issue. There might be an issue with them not wanting too much press.
Right. That's what I meant.
That's what my instinct tells me.
Well, I think that's incredibly unfortunate.
Yeah,
because
I actually think they have a decent program. Lots of people use them. I think it provides both a public service and a service to the inmate, but we do need to hear from them, I guess, not secondhand from me.
Can I change the subject slightly? Did you get competing quotes? Do we have an alternative vendor? We
do not yet. Nobody's gotten back to us with a quote. We've solicited through the procurement office. Going all the way back to when we reupholstered the auditorium chairs at Driscoll in the late 90s, early maybe 2000. Dave Giannakakis found a file with a vendor that we used there, and we also reached out to WB Mason for quote.
Did you reach out to the vendor that I had sent to you, the co-op?
No, not yet. I didn't see that. I'm behind.
It was in the email. No, it was in the emails you'd been replying to. I said there was a co-op that was the one.
Oh, that was the one out in Springfield?
Correct, exactly. The one in Springfield.
Okay. I think I passed that to someone in my office, and I didn't get a response. Okay. So I'll follow up with that. Probably not until just around lunchtime today. After this meeting, I'm at Driscoll much of the morning.
So guys,
Sorry, I have no background on this from before
Oh.
the meeting. We're talking about MassCore here, the MassCore Industries.
yeah,
Yes.
you're familiar
Okay.
with it? Well, it's so we need to reupholster the chairs in the auditorium at Lincoln. We're doing the first floor there. We're out of the $1 million of the CIP, we decided to concentrate our efforts on Lincoln and one other school that's closed for this, or well, two other schools that we can access during the summer that don't have kids there. Lincoln was really in need of, it's been 30 years since anything's been done there. So we were trying to paint the whole first floor, do carpeting, and Matt had gotten an estimate from this MassCore, which is a company that employs prisoners, teaches them, helps them to hopefully get a job afterwards, is what our understanding is. To reupholster the chairs in the auditorium at Lincoln. And so there was some concern by Mariah and Natalia about, prison labor and how that works, the amount of money they get paid, is this the right thing to do? And so I said, let's have a meeting on Thursday morning and we'll talk. When I talked to the people, I asked this Stephen Nyland, would he be willing to come and talk to us? And he said, yes, at the time. Remember, Matt, when we were discussing it? I said there was some concern. He said he understood the other communities had the same concerns. And so they could. And I just assumed he got the email. I assumed he was going to be coming this morning. I just tried calling and there was no answer. So I don't want to keep people here for no reason at all. I mean, it's, almost 8 minutes after.
Natalia's on her way. She just was having trouble finding the Zoom link, but I just pointed her in the right direction.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she's coming.
I feel bad. I feel really bad taking everybody's time here.
Well, but I think it's worth us talking about anyways,
definitely.
Helen, whether or not they're here, because so when Helen and I had met with Matt and Charlie
Well, why
a
don't you
month
wait for
ago.
Natalia? Let me just catch
Okay.
up where we are.
Okay.
And then
Here,
Yeah,
and I'm
for me, it would be helpful to know how we even got to this stage because this is
Yeah.
the first I've heard of any of this. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me go back to the first season. You remember Susan, her first season. So in the CIP budget for starting July 1st, there's $1 million for the schools for a mini CIP. We used to do this all the time, do small projects out of the CIP. Those are paid for, that's the town CIP. Those are paid for from free cash that comes in every year, and it's divided among all the different departments. We haven't had that money in years, right, Matt? At least 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think FY20 was the last year, and then the pandemic struck.
And even then, it was very little money that we had.
It ranged from like 100 to 250,000. This is the
Right.
first big one.
And so back, I think, Andy, you walked around with us, didn't you? When we went and visited both Baker and Lincoln, because those are the older, quote unquote, oldest schools that haven't had much done to them in the last 25, 30 years. And so we wanted to see what needed to happen there. We talked with the principals. Remember, they showed us around. That was back in November, I think, sometime. The money came through and we talked with Charlie and we, decided that those 2 schools probably could use the most and maybe some painting at one or another school. We have since looked at Lincoln more in depth and in terms of using the money, and that's was going to be presented actually at our meeting on Tuesday, I think. Or Thursday, our next meeting.
Mhm.
That we would do the first floor of Lincoln and really sort of get that done, do the woodwork, refinishing the woodwork, carpeting, what's it called, painting. And anything else, Matt, that I'm missing?
No, that was it. Pretty much a facelift except for the ceilings.
Right. And some work in the auditorium with the sound system needed to be fixed, things like that. And in the auditorium to reupholster the, to paint it all and new carpeting, and then reupholster the seats. And that's where this meeting is about, the reupholstering. Matt had gotten a quote from MassCore that is on the state list, so you don't have to go out to bid, correct, Matt?
Yeah, that's the way I understand it. And we got Dave
We have
Giannakakis
David
here.
Giannakakis here. David, you don't know everybody. I'll introduce you in a minute, but I just wanted to finish the story. If you're on the state list, and correct me, David, if I'm wrong, you don't need to go out to bid because the state has already done the bidding for you, so to speak.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So we asked them to come and look, and they came and measured and did everything. And and that leads us to this meeting where Natalie and Mariah both brought up the issue of using, because the company that came from the list works with prisoners. My understanding is to rehabilitate them, to give them a profession so that when they leave prison, they can have work. Also, they pay them. I don't know the amounts. I don't know anything more about the actual piece. And that was what I was hoping we would have today at this meeting, that they would come and talk with us and explain how it works, what they pay, what the prisoners get, what they can keep, et cetera, et cetera. And
was there a previous meeting at which
Can
this
I-
was discussed and where Mariah and Natalia raised the question?
You were there, Andy, but you might have
was.
been out of the room. So there was
Oh.
there was 2 meetings. Let me just back up a smidge. Charlie, Helen, Matt and I met, I don't know, maybe at the end of March, or I don't know when it was, mid-April, some point, to discuss all the status of all the bits and pieces. And Charlie had brought up at that meeting that the upholstery would be done through this prison contract. And I have to say that I sort of I snagged my brain on it a little bit, but I sort of assumed that any sort of exploitative practices, if they were still happening in the United States, weren't happening in Massachusetts. And then at our last school committee meeting, was that the 18th of this month when we met last? I think so. Natalia brought it up because Helen was giving the update at the end. When we were doing subcommittee updates, Helen went through the details of what was going to be done with the $1 million, and Natalia brought it up in response at that point. And that's when it came back up. And since then, I've done some more reading and talked to some more people, including people who are more informed on current Massachusetts prison practice. They have said things about how these programs run, which Helen had heard something different. For example, I had heard that the wage that they earn, they can't take with them, even if they are to exit the prison system. Helen had heard something else. And so but to me, there's a couple of questions. There's sort of the bigger question of, can anything ever be voluntary in a prison system? But also, can we mandate in our contract that there is a living wage, so to speak, offered to the prisoners instead of the typical less than $1 an hour, which is exploitative? So that's, and Natalia, I don't know if there's more you want to add to that, but I think that that's the question. Sort of at the heart of it is, is it a moral question? Is there any way to mitigate this to make it appropriate? And I'm not sure there is, but Natalia might have more.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. And obviously, Andy, it was my first school committee meeting and I didn't know how far ahead. So I sort of said, from my work, we have in our center on health and human rights, a team that works on incarceration and health. So we've worked a lot on issues around what is voluntary, when we do, for example, IRBs to study, like, can that be voluntary? So I think a lot about the ethics of doing work with people who are incarcerated. And so, yeah, it raises a red flag. And I think it also raises a red flag to me in the sense of, you know, if the public, if our teachers, if our students, if our parents knew that we were using, you know, and yes, we can call it a vocational program, but they will call it prison labor. And if they knew that, like, how would that seem? Like, I do think that there are some concerns from a real, you know, like, are these the values of our town? And for individual people who are incarcerated, maybe they would say, yeah, this is actually better than sitting in my cell. And I think that's what Matt said. On the other hand, this is a system, a problematic system where there's structural racism. We know that people who are incarcerated in inequitable ways, and we are supporting a system because I imagine the overhead goes to the Department of Corrections. I don't imagine, you know, they get a living wage. There are no occupational protections. So in upholstery, have there been any injuries? Like, I think it's just really troubling to try and save costs, which I imagine this is the main motivation to go with them and not another vendor, to save costs when I assume our, you know, our town probably doesn't hire people who have, you know, come out of the system. So it sort of seems like we're saving costs through a vocational training, you know, kind of narrative, but not then giving opportunities to people who were formerly incarcerated to work in our system. And so it seems like we're benefiting from a flawed system to, you know, so I have moral, kind of ethical, overarching issues. I do think we could ask some specific questions around wages, around protections, about labor and health protections. But fundamentally, you know, I don't know if school committees should just set a policy and say, yes, they are on the vendor list, but they're not a vendor that we will work with, and what the implications are. Obviously, there are financial implications. And Helen, you know, you might say this will triple the cost. And then we say, do we still need to do it? How do we do
Well,
that? Can we do it?
I would like to go back to sort of talking about, you know, I mean, I can argue for both sides.
Yeah, me too. Me
And
too.
on the one hand, you're absolutely right what you're saying. The system sucks. It's just not, it's not a fair system. You know, people who are incarcerated, we know all those issues. We're not going to change those issues. Does this, by having this opportunity, allow them to get out of their cells, allow them to talk to other people, allow them to be more of a human being than they would be sitting in their cells and doing nothing? And that's sort of, I mean, sometimes the perfect is the enemy of the good. And so that's what I'm trying to weigh in my head more than anything else. I mean, I don't think there's, you know, I mean, there may be a right and wrong answer for you, Natalia. But for me, it's a little bit more nuanced. And that's why I was hoping we would have the people here to really understand, do they get to keep the money? Coming out of prison with some money helps you. It doesn't hurt you, you know, being able to have a trade. Do they use it? Your questions were excellent. I sent those questions to them. Verbatim, I just copied your questions. So I don't.
He did say that they had a much lower recidivism rate compared to the non-vocational programs.
Okay, but do they pick people according to that too? I mean, that could be. More of
All she said was that it's a voluntary application process, and they screen. Not everybody that applies, you know, gets into the program.
Can I ask a
But
slightly
do they
different
screen
question?
per project as well? I mean, it's one thing for the vocational program to be, and you know what, maybe I could be talking about both sides of my mouth too, to be reupholstering chairs in perhaps like a senior center. But then to put them into schools, I mean, I don't know, is there an additional screener for something like that?
They don't go into the schools, Nancy. The chairs are removed. They don't go to the schools.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. Again, I didn't know that. I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, there's no way you could know that, Nancy. There's no way you could know that.
And also, I mean, which correctional facilities are we working with? Are we talking about minimum security correctional facilities?
So.
Or are we talking about like?
It's Norfolk.
It's Norfolk. It's Norfolk. I'm not sure if that's medium security or
if that's that's like maximum security.
No, it's not maximum.
It's medium security. Yeah. It's medium security.
I mean,
Um,
I think that once you've paid your debt to society, and I think that rehabilitation, I think all of this is incredibly important. I think it's absolutely important. I just have questions. I guess that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't have a very strong, I think it's a great idea if we could figure out how it works and if it's on the up and up and it's legit. I think Natalia brings up some excellent points from a moral standpoint as well. And I don't know anything about this. I'm not even like to be able to speak intelligently about this one way or another, other than if there's a way to make this work, you know, why not give them a fair shot? I guess that's all I'm saying. It's I don't
Okay.
want to, you know, I don't want to immediately, sorry, I'll take my hand down.
Okay, thank you,
Take
Nick.
this off the table because, you know, to judge this program with no information, I think is not fair for me. So it'd be hard for me to vote one way or another. But I think that in general, everybody deserves a second chance. Everybody.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Natalia and Mariah, I do want to, we're still going to finish at 9. I'm not going to let this go on, but go ahead. Natalia.
I think Mariah had her hand before me,
Oh, did she? I'm sorry.
or maybe I don't. Maybe I had it in
Go ahead.
response to you.
Go ahead.
I mean, Nancy, I think to your point, that's what we're trying to establish here is if it's fair and from the perspective of the incarcerated people. I mean, it is, you know, that we are trying to give, and Mariah had identified a group that hires, I understand, people who were formerly incarcerated. So giving them the opportunity right when they're out, presumably with all the labor protections, the living wage. And so to me, that would be a very good solution and a good
Agreed.
idea to work with someone
Yeah.
like that. So and Helen, I get your point. There are many debates. I mean, this debate is huge within the criminal legal kind of like, do we try to make incremental change or is that supporting the system? Like these debates are happening. I don't think we are qualified as a small committee to have this behind closed doors. If we are going to go to this, I would encourage us to have open comment from the town, make it aware, because otherwise, you know, they're going to come back and say, how did you do this? Like people like, if, you know, I agree with you, there are going to be lots of views. I don't think on a topic like this, we should be making the call because there are so many views. I've shared my personal views. I would not block it, you know, in the sense of like, I'm sharing it, but I think it's a huge risk for us to make this call as if we don't know that there are these big debates happening, because we do know that there are these big debates happening and that there are, and as Nancy said, we do need to know what is the wage. If it's $1, it's very different from being $10 an hour or 50 cents. If people can't take the money out, like, so we don't have the information right now. We know that it's a controversial issue and there are many sides. And so
Natalia,
I'll stop
we
there.
don't even have a quote yet. So we're not making any decision today.
Okay,
Let's
thank
start.
That leads into my next point, which is all of this is a non-issue if we have another quote that fits within our budget. So can we just prioritize getting the other quotes and working from there?
Matt, is that feasible? And
Yeah,
Dave?
I mean, Dave can tell us because normally we would do this and then sort of hand stuff to Dave's office, but we're both sort of looking in different places to try to hurry up and get quotes for reupholstering the chairs.
a part of our goal was to get all of this done, just so everybody knows, get the whole first floor done, get the theater done so that it's not, you know, something that has to be done afterwards. We may have to do it in steps. We may have to do it next summer. I mean, you know, it's a.
Yeah,
just-
we were trying to do it before school opened after Labor Day.
So, and that was why I had this meeting today to try and, you know, move things along, get the quotes and know. And okay, I think we have milked this subject as much as we can at this point. Is that the way you said it? I think that. And I think we need to do more homework.
Can we
Make-
just get a clarity, Helen, though, on what the deadline is? Like when, like what
don't-
is,
because
no, but let me finish my sentence. Let me finish my sentence. When do Matt and Dave need to have a vendor ready to go to be able to do the work this summer was my question.
The answer is we don't know. We had assumed, you know, part of it is, you know, all schools are doing things now during the summer. You know, it's not just us. So we were trying to get the bid from them so that we could vote it. And they were supposed to get it to us last week after we met with them the week before. That obviously hasn't happened. So the answer is probably it's not going to happen this summer, if I had to guess, just in terms of the process of getting a bid, getting on somebody's radar that, you know, they need to do this summer. I'm not convinced that this will happen, but we're going to try.
Do we
Matt?
lose the budget then? Do we lose that money?
No,
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
we can bid it and encumber it for next, you know, for them to
Okay,
do the
okay.
work, I think. No, Dave, in terms of the CIP money?
No, you've got on the money, you've got time. It's just quickly, the companies that are out there that do upholstering, this is their busy season every summer, auditoriums all around the state, different schools and others, you know, like to do it when the students aren't there. So as far as the deadline, it varies. The biggest problem is getting companies actually on site to take a look. Each auditorium has some different quirks when it comes to the chairs and the setup and the removal and all that. So I know that Matt's staff has begun to look into this as far as alternative companies and things. I suspect the costs will be higher, but we don't have a quote from anybody yet. So we'll see what happens when they actually get on site, take a look at the chairs themselves, and come up with quotes. It's a very small industry, upholstery. It's not something that a lot of companies do. The biggest qualm is people will come and just say, "Oh, we'll sell you new ones," instead of upholstering them. So we have to caution against that with these companies and say, no, we're very happy with the physical structure of the auditorium chairs. We just need, the redone and things like that. So yeah, between Matt's office and my office, we'll work on getting some other quotes and be able to compare what we get. One other thing, we have used MassCore before for things such as lockers, for benches around town, for the trash receptacles. They're very good with metal and those types of items. They're actually part of DOC. They're not really a separate company. They were set up by the state many years ago. Back when I worked in the state, I actually visited the facility up in Norfolk, and it's something to behold. I'm quite amazed at the things that and the industries that they're involved in. So yeah, I think we definitely don't have any numbers right now. So that would be the first step to be able to compare things. Thanks.
Do you know anything more about their system, Dave?
All I know is they, do employ the various prisoners and folks there. I don't know about the salaries. I don't know about the questions that you seem to have gotten some different answers on about how they're able to take the funds or not take the funds, that type of thing. All I know is it's a fairly very much business-like operation in the facility up in Norfolk. But I don't know the behind the scenes sort of things that they would probably best answer to, leave it up to those folks from MassCore.
Okay. I think this is
and
about
not everybody has the exact same business model. So we had to pick a fabric. Another vendor may say these are the fabrics you can pick from. Right. So we'll be fortunate if we can get it done this summer, as people's dance cards are, usually kind of full at this point.
We had started early, but unfortunately it's still not, they haven't come through on their part, actually. So what I would suggest is maybe by June 6th, we can just get an update or quotes by then, for our next meeting. That would be next Tuesday. Is that feasible, you think? Maybe.
I don't even want to say yes, because having people get back to us in short order for this particular type of project has not gone smoothly thus far.
Right. Well, let's make a goal, and if we can't get it, we can't. But let's at least.
So all right. So I can tell you on Monday afternoon if we have any prices.
Okay, and maybe well, that can be under not old business, right, Betsy, at our next meeting, if we need to.
We could really just add it as an agenda item, and if there's nothing to report, there's nothing to report.
Yeah, put it on at the end. Put it on at the end so that if we take it off, it's no big deal. All right, Dave, I really appreciate you coming on in the 11th hour like this. It's
No
really
problem. No,
helpful.
no problem.
I don't
Anything I
know.
can do to help, as Matt knows, and Karen over in the school facilities, we work together on a lot of things,
Yeah,
and we'll continue to do so.
I'm sorry I didn't introduce you to all the school committee
Oh,
members.
okay. I'm David Jennikakis, Chief Procurement Officer for the town and schools. So I'm the guy that ultimately signs the purchase orders, I guess you could say.
And Natalia is our newest school committee member.
Nice to meet you.
Andy, I think you may know,
Yep.
been around for a long time. Nancy Gore is second newest school committee member. And Mariah was here, but I think she had to go because I said it was going to be a half-hour meeting. Amazing. This is a meeting that didn't happen, but yet we were able to fill the full half hour. Thank you all for coming, and to be continued.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.